Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, Three Principles practitioner, Del Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading Three Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I am so thrilled to have as my guest today my mentor, Dr. George Pranskey. George is one of the two professional founders of the understanding of the three principles of mind, thought, and consciousness. He has taught the principles for over 30 years to individuals, couples, businesses, and colleagues. Dr. Pransky is the author of the Relationship Handbook and over 50 audio recordings. During his career, he has served on the faculty of 3 graduate universities and continues to pioneer this understanding in new industries. Currently, he is the partner at Pransky & Associates and is on the executive committee of the Three Principles Global Community. Thank you so much, George. Thank you for being with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Del.
Aw.
Actually, I'm going to correct something you said, though. It's
Oh.
actually 40 years, I realized.
40. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I started in 1976.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So how long were you a psychotherapist before you met Sydney Banks?
About 5 years.
Yeah. And what was it that got you curious enough to go and visit Sydney up in Salt Spring?
Well, at that time, my partner was a man named John Enright, who was a very well-known psychologist in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
And we were partners, and we had a mutual client who called him up and said, "John, I'm up in Salt Spring Island in Canada, and this guy is talking to people, and people are changing, couples are falling in love, people who are stressed are learning to relax, people who are kind of have dropped out of society are coming back into society." So John was very interested in what this guy's methodology was, and was very disappointed when this guy Val told him that he didn't have a methodology. He just talked to people, just like over coffee, And John went up there, couldn't understand why the people were getting so affected by him, and asked me to go up with Linda, and we went up, and I was trying to figure it. I couldn't figure it out either, except that I was affected by him.
Mm-hmm.
I was deeply affected by him, and all of a sudden I felt like the limitations and the difficulties in my life might just be illusory. This may be a function of what was going on in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me huge hope. And I was kind of hooked at that point.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of me leaving my old work and teaching what I teach now.
Mm. And how did it impact your relationship with Linda, this understanding?
Well, before we met Sid, our relationship at the beginning was great, and then it started to deteriorate. And by the time we met him, we were both wanting to get out, but we were kind of too insecure to get out. So we were kind of in limbo. And then we met Sid, and we all of a sudden had all this new hope that we could get a good thing going.
Yeah.
We really did. We both thought, well, listen, we should be able to figure this out. And our relationship really changed overnight.
Wow.
The day we met him, it got better, and then it turned around, and then it just got better ever since. And we've been together for, almost 40 years.
I know. And I know that you wrote the Relationship Handbook, which just had the anniversary edition, came out last year, and you work with couples a lot. So what do you think, what is the I mean, we know it's all thought, but what would you say is the thinking that can really derail a relationship really fast? What was the sort of thinking that you experience when couples come to you in crisis?
It's not so much the thinking. Adele, as it is the feelings that
Oh,
they
yeah.
have.
Mm-hmm.
So couples fall into bad feelings because of what's going on in their minds.
Mm.
And when they get into the bad feelings, it's easy for them to think that the cause of it is their partner, because when they're not with their partner, they feel a lot better. So they say, well, if I feel a lot better when I'm not with my partner must be the cause of the bad feelings. And people's inability to get over their bad feelings is the reason for the divorce rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, there would be a very, a single digit divorce rate.
Yeah, and also I just think the blame game of if I had a different partner, I'd be happier. I love what you really, really helped me to see a lot was, the separate realities. And, just that we're responsible for, we're all living in our own thought-created little bubble. And I think sometimes in relationships, we just expect the other person to see and act and see the world the way we see it. We have this big expectation on them.
Yeah. And people don't easily see that their feelings are coming from within their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they really don't know how to get over bad feelings.
Yeah.
And then they start thinking, well, if I wasn't with this person, I'd feel so much better. And that makes them feel better, just the prospect of that. And then they say, I must be right because I just had that thought and I felt better. So that's got to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting circular loop.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the other question I would ask then is what are the things that really help a relationship take it out of the gutter when it's really sort of derailed, and how do you work with couples that really feel that this is final, that we're heading for divorce, we're hopeless, you can't do anything for us?
Well, one thing we do is to show them that they didn't used to feel the way they do now when the conditions in the relationship were pretty much the same as they are now.
Mm.
So we'll show them that their feelings have changed without a big change in circumstances. And that points to the possibility that they could feel different even with a relationship such as it is. And then we show them where their feelings come from and what enables people to feel differently about life and about other people. And so we essentially show them how to get over themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, and even when they're in the throes of it and they're attacking each other. I know you talk about goodwill. I mean, goodwill in a relationship. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Well, I think that there's some point where the couples we work with see that if they have an adversarial relationship, if they are against their partner, and if they have bad will towards their partner, it's not going to work out well for anybody.
Mm.
It's not going to work out well for the partner because they don't like that. It's kind of insulting to them that they're being looked at in that way. And in the person themselves, it doesn't work out because they don't feel good. So just the idea that goodwill is a foundation for a good relationship, and that people can have goodwill and feel in a partnership independent of the particulars of their relationship.
Yeah.
So the idea, like one of the things we do in Lacan when we see couples is we show people that they could have be partners, work together and be partners even if they're not compatible, even if they see things different, even if they have this certain history, that it's kind of a stance. It's a natural thing for people to feel warmly towards others. So we show people how once you head in that direction, it feeds on itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a bank, a bank account. If you keep withdrawing and not depositing, it's, you're going to be, basically, there's going to be nothing left in it.
That's right. That's exactly.
Yeah. So what do you do when a couple come to you that have, had some maybe, serious, I say serious issues, but say there's been infidelity and one partner can't get over it? How do you deal with a situation like that?
Well, one thing we do is we ask the person that's committing the infidelities if they see it as a mistake, as they see it as, gee whiz, in retrospect, I wish I hadn't done that, or I think that's a bad idea. And if they say, yeah, I think it's a mistake, I shouldn't have done that, it was a bad idea, then we would ask them if they think that they can avoid doing that again, or do they feel like they're in harm's way? Now, if they say, I think I'm in harm's way, we ask them if they would accept our help to get to a point where they felt confident that they wouldn't have another affair. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. If they say, no, I'm not in harm's way, I really don't see myself making the same mistake again, then the ball's in the court of the other person to forgive them. Mm-hmm. And if they say, well, I can't forgive them, we'll say, well, would you like to be able to forgive them or her?
That's great.
And if they say, well, yeah, I'd like to be able to, and we say, okay, we'll help you with that. Mm-hmm. Now, as soon as a person says, I want to go in this direction, I want to be forgiving, I want to stop having affairs, that's a huge step in the direction of change. And we provide the rest of it by showing them how the mind works and how people can change their minds about things.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's great. So do you ever feel that you come across a couple, because I know you do so many you do a lot of intensives and you work with couples and as well as businesses, but do you ever feel that there is a situation where it really is beyond help and people have come to you and you're just sort of like, I don't know what to do here, they're just not getting it, or do you normally feel that you have pretty much a great success rate with relationships that would otherwise look like they were headed, into divorce?
Well, we do have a good success rate, but it's also, there are couples who, let me see how to say this. There are couples who aren't committed to what we would say is the right direction. For example, I had a couple a couple of months ago where he had a low opinion of his wife, and he was comfortable with a low opinion, and he didn't think that it was his job to have good regard for her and good respect for her.
Yeah.
And I said to him, well, Michael, if such as you are, I don't see how it's going to work out. I really don't, because the way it's set up now, you feel bad about your wife, you're feeling worse about her over time, and you don't want to turn around and go in the direction of feeling good about her and appreciating her. And he said, well, no, I feel like my position is very reasonable. That's what he said. He used that term, reasonable. I said, well, such as you are, I really don't see how this is going to work out in the long run. And it was kind of a shocker to him, but he said, well, what are you saying, that I shouldn't, that I should respect her even though I don't respect her? I said, no, I think you should see that it's very possible for her to respect her, for you to respect her. And I think it's very possible for you to see her in a nicer light, but it's not going to be possible if you don't want to do that. If you kind of feel like I would be lying to myself if I did that, which is the way he felt. I would be untruthful. She really is a person that you can't respect, and she really is a bad person in these ways, as long as you are committed to that. Now, those are the kind of situations where I'll suggest to a couple, I don't see how this is going to work out. Not because of their circumstances or their compatibilities, but because of where they're headed, their commitment to the kinds of things that make a relationship strong. They're just not committed to that. Unwittingly, they're committed to things that make a relationship weak.
Yeah. So what happened in that scenario? They weren't ready?
Well, he left here and said, I don't see myself making that shift and wanting to make that shift. But then when he got back to, he was from, I think, San Diego, he said, I talked to him next time, he said, George, I realized that it's not just my wife. All my relationships suffer from my disrespect.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it, but I got back here and I realized my business partners, my kids. He said, it's terrible that I'm imposing that on people, and it's not good for me. No, I don't really enjoy the people in my life. So he came around.
Wow, that's a huge insight.
It really is, and I didn't
Yeah.
know that would happen to him. He just went back and he had new eyes.
Yeah.
And he was horrified at the way he was, whereas he was up here, he was proud of the way he was. It was such a turnaround.
I mean, I was going to say that. I mean, even though you do the relationship workshops and help people in relationships, I mean, even in business, I know you do a lot of work in business, but relationships are everywhere. we can't.
They're wall to wall.
Exactly. So do you notice how do you approach, say, again, from the perspective of, say, a CEO or somebody that's disrespecting his employees? I mean, how do you, sort of get them to see that? Is it a different approach, or how do you?
It's very common, Del. And the way I usually approach it is to ask them if they think it matters how he or she feels about his or her employees. So I'll ask them, I say, do you think it matters whether you respect your employees or not? And I'll tell you something. Every time I ask that question, I can tell the person never thought about that.
Yeah.
Never thought about it. It just wasn't something that they thought about. So then they would say, usually, well, I don't know. What do you think? It doesn't matter what I think. What do you think? Like if you were working in a place and your boss had no respect, had a low regard for you and was mostly critical, would that matter to you? And the person I'm thinking about said, well, yeah, it would matter to me, but I wouldn't get those feelings from a boss because I'm a good employee. And I said, well, don't you think that some of your people think they're good employees? And that got him to consider where he was coming from and how that was affecting the company.
Yeah.
So that kind of opened the door in that direction.
Yeah, because there's so many, I'm thinking of some bosses I know too that just feel that to be liked is a weakness. To have goodwill, in the work environment is detrimental.
Absolutely. They feel like being liked is an insult. Being feared is a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I'll tell you something, Del, I have never so far, I've never seen a boss who hasn't come off of that position
Yeah.
with the discussion. They just don't get back far enough to see what they're doing. So when they meet with you or me, we move them back and they look from a distance at life and they don't like what they see.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask them, well, do you think it's a problem that you don't like this person? They say, no. Do you think it's a problem that you don't like people as a human being?
Yeah.
They'll say, well, yeah.
Yeah. I love that, George. Talk a little bit about that, because I love how you talk about the sort of the consciousness and the sort of the, when you depersonalize things. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I find that people get very defensive when I talk to them about them.
Mm-hmm.
They get self-conscious and they get defensive. But when I step back and ask them about human beings, they find it easy to be, have perspective and to look at that.
Yeah.
It's very easy. So if I say to someone, well, do you think it's good for you to be rushing around all day and, under so much time pressure? They'll say, yeah, it's good because I have a lot to get done. Okay. Now, if I say to them, now, Del, do you think rushing is good for human beings? It's a good strategy for human beings. They'll say no, because when you rush, you make a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. So I just asked them that about themselves.
Yeah.
And then I asked them about human beings. They have a really good answer. One time I was doing something for YPO, the Young Presidents Organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking them, what would a person do to enjoy their life more? And they said, well, buy another home in Tahoe or go skiing more often, things like that. I couldn't get them to see anything that had to do with them inside.
Mm-hmm.
But then I said to them in desperation, I said, well, suppose you were on your deathbed, your grandchild comes and says, Grandpa, I want to be happy in life. I want to enjoy life. Do you have any advice for me? Well, they talked about it's all inside yourself, and you have to respect enjoyment, and you want to have a very little stress in your work so that you can enjoy it. They had all the answers because it wasn't about them.
That's so funny.
They were one step removed from them,
Yeah.
and then they were very wise and they're very profound. It was so interesting. I just stumbled onto that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. It is. It's like you say, when it's personal, a lot of people get very tight and defensive of their position and the choices they've made in life. But when you get that perspective and look at it they get curious.
Yeah.
And it's somewhere they'll actually sort of explore. That's wonderful. I love that. So we, believe it or not, are going to be coming up on our time. It goes so fast. But do you have what would you, just last words to share that Sid shared with you that really changed your life, really impacted you the most out of what he shared?
Well, one thing that he shared that stuck with me big time is I was in a group of people and one of them said, oh, Sid, are you saying that it's kind of in the cards that our hand is already dealt and that we're, that according to how we understand life, it kind of plays out that way? And he said, yeah, I'm saying that. I'm saying that everybody's hand is dealt and everybody has a straight flush and they don't know it.
I love that one.
Everybody has it made. Everybody doesn't realize that they have it made.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
That was great.
Yeah, it's true, and it's true, and it's
Absolutely.
really true. I can say that for myself. So anyway, so I just, again, thank you so much. It's so lovely to I was sharing with Linda, I interviewed her before, and just so incredibly grateful to have you both as my mentors, and for you having stuck in there with me when things got a little...
Well, I really enjoy doing this show. I want to apologize for coming on late
Oh,
because
don't worry
I
about
cut
that.
our time short, but I love doing this. I
Yeah.
love that you're doing this show. I love the kind of questions you ask, and it's been my privilege to come on here and talk to your listeners.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much.